All right, welcome to this week's Ghost Tales. I'm your host, Ashley Knight. With us today is Amy Howard. She's with the Ocracoke Ghost and History Tours, and we are just so excited to have you on the show. Thank you so much, Amy, for being here with us.
Thanks for having me.
All right, and you do the Ocracoke Ghost and History Tours. Tell us a little bit about that and how long you've been giving tours down there.
So, my dad started the tours about 20 years ago. I've been doing them almost as long. Um, he is an avid collector of Ocracoke history and had a bunch of stories. And a friend of him has told him that he needed to get them all together and start giving tours. And he delayed and delayed on it. And he said he finally went down to either Charleston or Savannah and did one of their ghost tours. And he said it was great. He had a lot of fun. He said, but the tour guide was from New Jersey. And he said he realized at that moment that if he didn't start doing the tours himself, somebody else would come in and figure out these stories and do it themselves. So my dad and our family have a really long history on Ocracoke, and it seemed to just really go together to have him collecting those stories and telling those stories. And then he's now past that. He's retired out. He decided that once he hit his mid 70s, he didn't really need to be walking around the village telling stories. That my husband and I have taken that over since then.
Oh, wow. And I have taken those tours in Savannah. My mom has family there, and I know exactly what you mean. It's all kind of not really locals doing it. It's all people who've moved in from out of town. So I totally understand his wanting it to be more authentic. Is that was his case. Well, okay, so how did he write all of these stories down? Did he go around and talk to people and collect the stories? How did he do that?
It was a process through the years. He had one particular relative across the street that he really relied on a lot for a lot of the information. He would sit and just talk with her for hours and write down notes. And she would give him little tidbits of information. And then he would ask other people about the stories and kind of build on it. And then, if it had anything to do with a shipwreck or an actual historical event, he would look those events up, get more information, and piece them all together into a cohesive story that made sense and followed a timeline.
So neat. Was he a history teacher, or what got him interested in this?
He was actually a philosophy major. And so my just a little background history. My family, the Howard family, has been on Ocracoke since the 1700s. And during the Depression, the 1920s and 30s, prior to the Depression leading up to it, a lot of the men of that generation needed to leave Ocracoke to go get work. So they actually migrated up to the Philadelphia area. A lot of them did. So my dad was actually raised up in Philadelphia, and then right after I was born, moved back to Ocracoke, and had always been interested in Ocracoke history. But then once he got back here and really living in it, he got really excited about it and talking to the locals, talking to people that had those old stories, that he realized eventually they were getting lost. And so he started writing them down. And if anybody has been, I don't know if you've been to our website, villagecraftsmen.com,
Hmm.
he has a treasure trove of stories and history for the past 25 years now. Just about every month he's been writing down stories. So it's been a gradual process, but one that is just actually vital, I would say, to Ocracoke's history.
Wow, that is so amazing. Yeah, I know, I understand that feeling of just kind of coming back and reconnecting with the area that your family is from and wanting to preserve that history. And that's just amazing that he did. So nobody else had any kind of sort of thing like that before your dad came along?
There were stories and there were histories and there were Out and Balance wrote a neat book about Ocracoke, about the people and other. The story of Ocracoke Island tells a little bit about just little snippets of storms and whatnot. But my dad did something slightly different where he would get more of the personal side of it. The oral histories more of the people and the places and the events.
Yeah, that's so neat. So now you and your husband do the tours. You said you've been doing them almost 20 years? or
Yeah, we can't remember exactly when we started them, but it's been about 20 years. My son's 21 and he was a baby when we started, so it's right around 20 years.
gotcha. Is this something that he'd want to take over?
Who knows?
Yeah.
Who knows? He's in art school now, so we'll see.
Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, and explain how your tours go along. Do you kind of take a walk through older neighborhoods and kind of talk about this building or what happened here, or what can people expect when they come on your tours?
Well, we have two separate tours that we do because historically there were two distinct sides of Ocracoke Island. Even though the island is small, you wouldn't realize that, but there were two distinct sides. So we've split the tour up into stories that were on the Down Point side of the island, which, if you're familiar with Ocracoke, is down over by the lighthouse. And then the other side is stories that are associated with the Round Creek side of the island, which is over here on Howard Street. So all those tours start on Howard Street, right across from the graveyards, and then we branch out. It's about a mile and a half walk at the most, and we tell stories about different houses or events along the way. And then we stop back and end when it's nice and dark right in front of the graveyards as well.
How neat. I love it. I love it. I love it. Okay, awesome. We're going to take a quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about the steamboat home and the story behind that. We'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, I'm back here on Ghost Tours, or Ghost Tales, rather. Sorry. I'm your host, Ashley Knight, and with us again today is Amy Howard with the Ocracoke Ghost and History Tours. Amy, you told us a whole bunch about how your father started this organization and how he just felt so inspired to preserve this oral history of this island, and it's just amazing. I just love the story behind it. We're going to talk now about the Steamboat Home. And tell me a little bit about the story behind that.
So the steamboat home, I guess I got to back up a little bit. The Outer Banks is known as the graveyard of the Atlantic. So not only do we have graveyards, we've got over 80 cemeteries in the village. We also have the graveyard of the Atlantic, which is hundreds of ships that have gone down off the coast here. So we've got two types of graveyards going on. And the steamboat home was a wreck that happened off of Ocracoke in 1837. And it was a first class passenger ship headed down to Charleston and leaving from New York, headed to Charleston. And they ran into a horrible storm off of Ocracoke. Actually, as they were approaching towards Ocracoke, it just was a massive storm. The captain should have gone to port, but he refused to do that. He really wanted to get down to Charleston in record time. The ship started taking on water. It started knocking people off the boat. One of the survivors said literally every wave that hit the boat, men, women, and children just went overboard.
Oh my
So this
goodness.
was all happening out in the ocean in 1837. At about that same time, the villagers in Ocracoke were experiencing this storm on land. And the wind was howling, the water was rising. They were trying to figure out what to do, how to stay safe during the storm. And one of the people on the island was woken up in the middle of the night with a terrible dream. And because dreams were so important on Ocracoke, his family brought him downstairs and told him to tell them the dream. And in this dream, he was walking along the beach and found just bodies, men, women, and children lined up on the beach. And then more and more bodies washed up onto shore. And then the waves started wrapping around his ankles, pulling him to shore. And he said it was just a horrible sight. And right about the time of him telling that story, this was in the middle of this hurricane, there was a knock on their door and a half drowned man fell into the house, and they did whatever they could to try to bring him back to life. And eventually he started telling his story about being on this ship that had wrecked off of Ocracoke. He had seen the glow of the village lights, kerosene lanterns in 1837, and made it into the village to try to get help. So all the islanders just dropped what they were doing and went out to the beach to try to see what they could do to help. And what they found was Jack Williams's dream. They found men, women, and children strewn along the beach from this wreck of the steamboat home. About There were about 140 passengers on board, and 90 died that night. And so I always say we have 80 cemeteries in the village, the ship graveyards out in the water, but then what they did with those 90 bodies was they just drug them up above the high tide line and put them in shallow graves in the beach and buried them right out there on the beach. So when you're out swimming in the water, when you're beach combing along the shoreline, if you're digging in the sand, making a sand castle, you never know if you're going to find the remains of one of those lost souls that ended up on the beach of Ocracoke or anywhere along the Outer Banks.
Yeah, you might come nose to nose or toe to toe with another person. Oh
I
gosh.
had one friend find what he's bone he couldn't identify. He went home, did some research, and he said for all the world, his information looked like it was a human bone, old, that had washed up out of the dunes. And he said he went right back and put it right back where it came from, covered it back up. He wasn't keeping it in his house.
Wow. Yeah, because you never know what's going to happen when you move. Anything that you find out there, that's maybe bringing on more than you want. And talk about just why premonitions and dreams and that kind of thing were so important back then.
Well, with oral histories and stories, that's the way they kind of got information. People would tell stories of what had happened before, and I don't know if it's an internal awareness that maybe we don't get as much when we have the screens and the telephones and everything. But in the old days, a lot of people would wake up from dreams and either find, like in this case of Jack Williams, that what he had dreamed had actually happened, or they would wake up from a bad dream and feel like they needed to do something to prevent it from happening. They would change their paths during the day, or they would shift how they thought or what time they had breakfasts because of a particular dream. So who knows if it was a heightened awareness because we weren't bombarded with so many different things coming under our brain, or if there's something in the air out here. We just don't know.
Yeah. Yeah, I totally get that. I mean, today we've got all this technology, our minds are elsewhere, and maybe, they were just more in tune to the vibrations, the atmosphere, the environment, and that kind of thing. So that would be interesting to look into. That's really cool.
We had one lady on the island whose mom refused to let her go to the local schoolhouse because the schoolhouse in that time had was located over a little ditch, and there was a little bridge going over the ditch, and the mother had dreamt that her daughter had fallen off that bridge into the ditch and drowned on her way to school, and absolutely would not let her daughter go to school. She had her home tutored instead. So
Wow.
they took them that seriously.
Yeah, no, that was very seriously taken. Wow. Okay. So, all right, we're going to take another quick break. And when we come back, we're going to talk about Springer's Point. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, Springer's Point, which has to do a lot with Blackbeard as well, and a bunch of other stories to go along with it. So we'll be right back. Stay with us. All right, welcome back to Ghost Tales. We are here again with Amy Howard of Ocracoke Ghost and History Tours, and we are going to jump right in talking about Springer's Point. Give us some history about this area. This is a really interesting area on the island, right?
Yes. Springer's Point has, I always say it has an old history, but technically it's not any older than the rest of the island, but it was where the first settlements were. Actually, Native Americans were out there. There are some artifacts left over periodically. People find them. It was where Blackbeard hung out. So Blackbeard liked that area because of Ocracoke Inlet,
Yeah.
and it's high ground. It has access to water. It had access to firewood. It was fairly protected. So he really liked that area. Then when he was killed, that's actually where he was killed, right off of Springer's Point.
Yeah.
After that, it was Pilot Town. Ship pilots lived out there because that was the main industry on Ocracoke starting out to help vessels navigate their way through Ocracoke Inlet or over to mainland North Carolina. And then after Pilot Town was no longer viable, piloting kind of went out of fashion on Ocracoke. Not out of fashion, they
Out of
lost the
business,
business.
yeah.
The inlets shifted. Then it was just isolated. It's been a nature preserve now. It's part of the North Carolina Coastal Land Trust. So it's a public space that people can go to, although there is no parking there. You have to walk, ride your bike. And it's also, it got its name from Mr. Springer, who was the last person who lived there. But Sam Jones was the most famous, most recent owner of Springer's Point. And Sam actually has relatives, family still up in Virginia, in the Virginia Beach area. Sajo Farms, Sam Jones, Berkeley Works, Machine Works, that's all his business. He found Ocracoke, loved it, and loved Springer's Point. And he loved Springer's Point so much that he didn't want to develop it, but he did want to be buried there. And he was buried there, still is buried there, not with either of his wives, but actually with his favorite horse. His horse, Ikey D, is buried in the graveyard there with Sam Jones. So when you
Wait,
go by, you'll
what
see his grave.
what's the name of the horse again?
Ikey D.
Ike D. Who, who is he named after somebody I'm not familiar with?
There were people on the island named Ikey D, but I do not know if he named them specifically after people or how that all worked. But
Oh my
there's even a
goodness,
road called Ikey D Road, but it's named after the person and not the horse.
not the
So
horse.
I,
Do we know why he expressed preference to be buried with him instead of his? He had more than one wife?
yes, so he married an islander. He married a Howard. That was his first wife, and then he was remarried. I don't know why. I don't know.
I
His
love it.
relatives still live on the island, but he was known as an eccentric fellow who fell in love with Ocracoke, and he did a lot of great things for Ocracoke. He actually helped us get the airstrip that we have now. So he did a lot of really interesting things, some that made more sense than others, perhaps.
Gotcha, gotcha. Wow, yeah, like being buried with your horse instead of your family. And Springer's Point, this is where Blackbeard was killed, and there are people are saying that that his ghost is running all over looking for his head that was cut off when he died. That's an interesting story.
Yeah, so there definitely are people who go out there and search for Blackbeard. I'm not sure I'd want to run into him, but there are people who search for Blackbeard. There are spirits that we've been told about, not just Blackbeard out there, but Native American spirits. Kevin Duffus came to the island one time and did some research, and he said they came up with Native American spirits. My favorite story is from Roy Parsons, though. Roy Parsons passed quite a few years ago now, and he used to be a caretaker for Sam Jones's properties. And as a result of that, after Sam died, Roy would go out there and just make sure the graveyard was still kept up nice too. And this one evening on his way, before he went home for dinner, he stopped by the gravesite and said he realized that there was somebody sitting on the old well that was there right next to Sam's grave. And Roy called out a greeting to this person, but he didn't get any response and said he didn't feel comfortable with that. So he turned around and started to walk away, looked over his shoulders as he was leaving. But this person had gotten up and was heading his direction. And Roy said at that point, he didn't care who it was. He was getting out of there. He just took off running, ran through the water, hopped into his boat. He had a great old Ocracoke accent. He said, I didn't even try to get my motor going. He said, I grabbed my oar and just pulled out as fast as I could. He said he finally got brave enough to turn around and look. And this person had walked out into the water and was standing about thigh deep and just started to dissolve as he watched and just dissipated into the mist that was hanging over the water. He said that was the last evening stop. He stopped, went to Springer's Point for. He wasn't going back there anymore.
Oh my God. Okay, I'm getting goosebumps. Oh wow. You've been out to Springer's Point?
Oh, yes. Yes. I
Have
don't
you?
go out at night anymore, though.
Okay. No,
But I've had people that have had experiences even in the middle of the day, especially right there around Sam's gravesite.
wow, wow. Yeah, we've had some other people on the show with Fairy Plantation House over in Virginia Beach, and they say, it's an old wives' tale that, you're going to come across more activity at nighttime than in the day because it's the activity is ongoing, all the time. It doesn't matter what time of day it is. Have you had any experiences when you're on these ghost tours?
Um, I can't say specifically. There are some times when you just kind of get a chill. I was doing a tour towards the end of the night one night, and I felt something just kind of slip across the back of my neck. Um, I don't know what it was, but I don't stand in that spot anymore. I let the tour goers stand in that spot now. I let them know though before we start. I said, "Well, used to stand over there, but something swiped across my neck there. So you just let me know if you feel anything."
Yeah. Has anyone reported feeling anything or seeing anything when they're on the tour?
Um, we've had some photos that have turned out a little interesting.
In what way?
Uh, there's one story I used to tell about a full moon experience that happened. It's too long of a story to go into right now. But a few people, when they took photos, had what looked like the full moon in the exact spot on their cameras. It didn't happen for everybody. It just happened for a couple people, and there was no moon in the sky. But it wasn't just like a little fuzzy orb on their photo. It was a full moon that they could see. So, little things like that.
Wow, that's interesting. Okay. And have you, I mean, not just on the tours, but have you had paranormal experiences otherwise along somewhere on the island?
Lots of people have experiences in different rental houses that we have on the island. I haven't specifically, I just like to hear about them.
Yeah, yeah. And people share them with you when they come on the tours?
Oh, yes, yes. And they share photos of things that they've had seen, taken. So that's always fun.
Yeah, that's a lot of fun. All right. Remind folks where they can find out more if they want to come down and hear you.
So right now, the website doesn't allow bookings because we're off season. But usually around April, we get the website up live. But villagecraftsmen.com is the website. And it is, we've got a drop down list to the Ocracoke. I think it's Ocracoke Ghost and History Tours. I'm not exactly sure how it's labeled on the website. I should know that, but and we do all online booking. We used to have a variety of ways people could do it, but with so many ways that people can contact us now, it's easier to streamline it and have it in one place. So it's all outdoors, it's all walking. So there is that. It's weather dependent, but
Yeah,
it's not a long walk, not uphill. It's lovely.
yeah. But still important to wear comfortable shoes.
Yes, comfortable shoes. I always tell people to bring water if they want it, bring a flashlight because there is some uneven ground. And we do stop in the graveyards, and I do tell people to turn the lights off during the very last stories because you got to get the good feel. It
Yeah.
gets really dark on Ocracoke. There are no street lights or very few street lights.
Wow.
So it can be pitch black and really creepy, especially when you're walking down Howard Street.
Yeah, yeah, I need to get down there. I have not visited yet, but after talking with you, I'm very inspired to come down and check it out
A
and
lot
maybe
to
walk
do, a
around.
lot of history.
Yeah,
The Ocracoke Preservation Society Museum has a lot of really neat history, gives you a good overview of the island to get started.
gotcha. Awesome. All right, and it's Village Craftsmen, MEN, not to be
Correct.
confused with man. We want to get them to the right place. All right, and y'all's tours start up in May and they run to September, and like you said, they can start booking in April.
Yep, yep. And we do the walking tours on Tuesdays and Fridays, and then we've actually partnered with the Ocracoke Beach Fires, and we do beach fire stories, which are different. We do Pirate and Sea Tales one night, which I think is Monday, and then ghost stories on Thursday nights. So hopefully that'll continue.
Yeah, how fun. Oh, I love it. All right, so get down to Ocracoke Island and check out these ghost tours, or just go and walk around and check out Springer's Point and let us know if you see anything. All right, Amy Howard, thank you so much for being with us today. It's been a wonderful journey with you on Ocracoke Island, and we would love to have you back if you are so willing.
Okay, sounds good. Thank
All
you.
right. Thank you, Amy. And thank you for joining us for this episode of Ghost Tales. That'll do it for this week. We'll hope to scare up another fun Ghost Tales next week. We'll see you then.